The seat card was small enough to fit in my palm, but it took both hands to keep it from shaking. It was cream-colored, thick, and trimmed with a little gold border, the kind of paper Melissa always ordered when she wanted people to know something had been handled properly. A tiny cross was pressed into the upper corner. The font was elegant. The table number sat underneath my name. Not my married name. Not the name I had signed for 18 years. It said, Ellen Brooks. Family friend. I stood beside the front table in the church basement with my black coat folded over one arm, while people behind me carried plates of ham, green beans, rolls, and potato salad. A framed photograph of my husband sat 3 feet away, smiling in that soft, apologetic way Robert had whenever he wanted peace more than truth. His children were all listed correctly. Melissa Carter, daughter. Daniel Carter, son. Abby Carter, granddaughter. Noah Carter, grandson. Lila Carter, granddaughter. And me. Family friend. The first thing I did was smile. That is what women like me learn to do before asking a question that should never have needed asking. We soften our faces. We lower our voices. We pretend there must be some harmless explanation, because if we admit too quickly that someone meant to hurt us, then everyone else gets uncomfortable. Melissa saw the card in my hand. She was standing by the coffee urn in a navy dress, greeting people like she was the widow and I was someone from Robert's old insurance office. Her hair was smooth. Her lipstick was perfect. She had been crying just enough for people to notice, not enough to ruin her makeup. She looked at the card. Then at me. Her expression did not change. "Oh," she said. "You found your table." I tried to keep my voice steady. "Melissa, this says Brooks." "Yes," she said, smoothing the front of her dress. "We thought that might be less confusing for people." Less confusing. I looked at Robert's photograph again. He had been dead 22 days. I had held his hand while the paramedics worked in our kitchen. I had identified his body at St. Agnes. I had chosen the navy suit he was buried in because it was the one he wore to our 15th anniversary dinner. I had slept beside his empty half of the bed for 3 weeks, waking at 4 in the morning to check a pill organizer that no longer needed filling. And now, at his memorial dinner, his daughter had decided that calling me his wife would confuse people. At the time, I thought the insult was the card. By the time I finally understood what that card meant, I had found 3 hospital forms, 14 automatic payments, an old notebook from Robert's insurance office, a voicemail no one had meant for me to hear, and a box of cards my husband had written and never given me. But the thing that hurt the most was not written by Melissa. It was written by Robert. Ellen handles everything. Kids prefer not to formalize her role. Do not push this. It keeps the peace. I did not know that yet. All I knew in that church basement was that my husband's family had already decided how much of me they wanted to keep. My money. My labor. My silence. Not my name. Not my place. Not my grief. Melissa reached toward the card like she might take it from me. I closed my fingers around it. She noticed. Her smile tightened. "Ellen," she said quietly, "this really isn't the time. There are sentences people use because they know decent people will obey them. This isn't the time. Don't make a scene. Everyone is grieving. Think of the children. We can talk later. They are not always wrong sentences. That is what makes them useful." I looked around the room. Pastor Janice was near the dessert table, speaking with 2 retired teachers. Daniel was unfolding chairs. Abby was helping Noah pour lemonade from a plastic pitcher. Lila, the youngest, was standing in front of Robert's photo with a cookie in one hand, staring at his face like she was waiting for it to move. I could have made it the time. I could have raised my voice and said, I was his wife. But Robert's photograph sat there in its silver frame, and even dead, he seemed to be asking me not to make things harder. So I took the card. I walked past the family table. I sat at a round table near the back with two women from Robert's old Rotary Club and a man who thought I was the church treasurer. I placed the card beside my water glass and kept one finger on it through the entire meal, as if someone might come by and take even that away. I met Robert Carter when I was 44 and tired in a way I did not know how to name. I was the secretary at Millbrook Elementary School, which meant I knew every child's bus number, every mother's panic voice, every father who only showed up when something had gone wrong, and every grandmother who remembered birthdays better than parents did. My desk sat between the front door and the nurse's office. I handed out late slips, answered phones, made copies, found lost lunchboxes, and pretended not to notice when children came to school hungry or scared. Robert came in on a rainy March afternoon to pick up his granddaughter Abby. She was in second grade then, all elbows, braids, and pink backpack, sitting in the office because her mother had forgotten early dismissal. Robert was not on the pickup list. He stood at my desk in a tan raincoat, polite and embarrassed, holding his driver's license like a man prepared to prove he was harmless. "I'm her grandfather," he said. "Melissa must have forgotten to call." I had heard that sentence too many times. I smiled, took the license, and said, "Then Melissa can confirm that for me." He did not get offended. That was the first thing I liked about him. He just nodded and said, "Of course. Rules are rules." Melissa answered on the third call, breathless and irritated. "Yes, that's my father. Yes, he can take her." I told Abby. "You didn't tell the office," I said. There was a pause. Robert looked down at his shoes. Melissa said, "Fine. Add him." After I hung up, he gave me a small smile. "I'm sorry about that." "Don't be," I said. "Children leave with the people on the list, not the people who sound reasonable." He laughed, and Abby looked up from her backpack with a grin, like she had just watched two adults pass a test. That was Robert. Or that was the version of Robert the first met first. Calm. Patient. Kind without needing credit for it. He remembered the names of cafeteria workers. He held doors for people even when they were too far away. He sent thank you notes on real stationery. He had silver hair, a careful voice, and a way of making tense rooms loosen by a few degrees. I had never married. Not because no one had asked, but because my life had filled itself with other people's needs. My mother got sick when I was 31. My younger brother moved to Arizona and sent money twice, then apologies for years. I took care of Mom until the end, and by the time I looked up, my friends had teenagers, mortgages, divorces, second marriages, and opinions about cholesterol. Robert was a widower. His first wife, Kathleen, had died 7 years before I met him. I learned that slowly, not all at once. At first he was Abby's grandfather. Then he became the man who brought coffee for the school office when he came to pick her up. Then he was the one who fixed the copier jam one afternoon while the maintenance man was at lunch. Then he was the person I found myself watching through the glass door when he walked up the sidewalk in his raincoat. He asked me to dinner in September. "I'm old-fashioned," he said. "I'd rather ask in person and be turned down in person." I told him I would think about it, mostly because I was afraid of how quickly I wanted to say yes. When I told my friend Ruth, she sat across from me at the diner and stirred sugar into tea she never drank. "Robert Carter," she said. "Insurance Robert?" "He used to own Carter Insurance, yes." "He's nice." "You say that like nice is a diagnosis." Ruth looked at me over her glasses. Nice men can still have complicated families. I should have asked her what she meant. Instead, I said what women say when they want something enough to step around caution. Everyone has a family. Robert's family was not unfriendly at first. That was the part one would replay later, trying to decide whether I had missed the warning signs or whether they had been too small to defend myself against. Melissa was 21 when Kathleen died. Daniel was 18. They were adults, technically, but grief had kept them young in certain ways. Melissa had become sharp and organized. Daniel had become quiet and agreeable. Robert had become a man who said yes to avoid making either of them hurt more. When he introduced me to them, he did it gently. "This is Ellen," he said. "She works at the school. We've been spending time together." Melissa looked me over, not rudely enough that anyone could accuse her, but thoroughly enough that I knew I was being measured. "How nice," she said. Daniel shook my hand and smiled. "Dad's mentioned you." Abby asked if I still had the candy jar at the front office. "I do," I said. "But don't tell your mother how often you used it." Melissa laughed, but not with her eyes. The first year, I was careful. I did not sit in Kathleen's chair at family dinners. I did not touch the recipe box in Robert's kitchen. I did not move the wedding photo from the mantel. I did not ask why mine and Robert's first photo together stayed tucked in his study while Kathleen's picture remained in the living room. I told myself it was respect. I told myself love did not need to rearrange furniture to prove itself. When Robert proposed, he did it on a bench outside the county courthouse after renewing his business license. He had taken me there under the excuse of needing paperwork notarized. It was not romantic in a movie way. Trucks were passing. A woman was smoking near the tax office. A little boy was crying because he had dropped his ice cream on the sidewalk. Robert pulled a small ring box from his coat pocket and said, "I don't want to do the rest of my life without you in the house." It was such a Robert sentence. Practical. Tender. Afraid of too much emotion. I said yes. We had a small wedding at First Methodist. No reception, just cake in the fellowship hall. Melissa helped arrange flowers. Daniel gave a toast. Abby wore yellow shoes. Robert cried when he said his vows. I did not see, then, that even at my own wedding I was standing carefully in a space Kathleen had left behind. I never tried to replace her. That was the first rule I made for myself. The second rule came later. Do not make Robert choose. No one said that rule out loud. They did not have to. If Melissa wanted Thanksgiving at Robert's house with Kathleen's stuffing recipe, I made it. If Daniel forgot Robert's birthday until the morning of, I bought an extra card and signed Daniel's name lightly enough that he could trace over it. If Abby needed a ride and Melissa was slammed, I drove. If Noah's school fundraiser needed a check, I wrote one and let Robert say it came from us. The first time Abby called me Grandma Ellen, Melissa corrected her. "Just Ellen, honey." Abby was 12 by then. "But Grandpa said." Melissa smiled too brightly. "I know, but Grandma was Grandma." I was standing at the sink rinsing lettuce. Robert was sitting at the kitchen table opening mail. He looked up, then down again. That was the first time I felt the shape of the room change around my body. I waited for him to say, "She can call Ellen what she wants." He did not. He cleared his throat and said, "Dinner smells good." Later, after everyone left, he found me folding dish towels in the laundry room. "You okay?" he asked. I said, "It stung a little." He nodded. Melissa is still sensitive about her mom. She's been gone 12 years. I know. Abby wasn't trying to erase anyone. I know. I waited. Robert leaned against the dryer, already tired from the conflict that had not even happened. "Can we not make this a thing tonight?" A thing. Over the years, almost every wound became a thing I was asked not to make. The Christmas stocking with my name written smaller than everyone else's. The vacation rental where I was given the pull-out couch so Melissa's friend could have the bedroom. The family photo where Daniel said, "Let's get one of just the Carters," and Robert squeezed my hand under the table but did not ask me to step back into the frame. He had ways of apologizing that did not require change. He brought me coffee in bed. He filled my car with gas. He touched my shoulder when no one was looking. He said, "You know what you mean to me." And I did know. Privately, I knew. That was the trap. A private love can keep you hungry for a very long time if it gives you just enough to ignore the empty chair in public. Robert got sick slowly. At first it was fatigue. Then shortness of breath. Then a hospital stay after he fainted at the pharmacy. The doctor said congestive heart failure, manageable if he changed his habits, took the medication, came to follow-ups, and stopped pretending he was still 50. Robert hated being fussed over. Melissa hated being inconvenienced. Daniel hated anything that required choosing sides. So I became the system. I kept the pill organizer on the kitchen counter and filled it every Sunday after church. I drove Robert to cardiology appointments, took notes, asked questions, argued with insurance, and learned which pharmacy tech would look for discount codes if you asked nicely. I bought the shower chair. I scheduled the home health nurse. I changed our meals. I slept lightly, always half listening for the cough that meant he needed help sitting up. Melissa visited when she could, which usually meant when she wanted to be seen visiting. She brought flowers from the grocery store and placed them near Robert's recliner. "Dad, you look good," she would say, while I stood in the doorway holding a basket full of his laundry. Daniel brought the kids on Sundays and let them scatter through the house while Robert smiled from the recliner. When they left, there were juice boxes under the couch and cracker crumbs in the rug. I cleaned them because Robert was too tired and because children should remember their grandfather's house as a place where they were welcome. "Thank you," Robert would say after everyone left. He said it softly, as if thanks were something he was ashamed to need. Sometimes late at night he would reach for my hand in bed. "I don't deserve you," he would say. I always answered the same way. "Then start taking better care of what you have." He would laugh, kiss my fingers, and promise to do better. Morning would come. Melissa would call. And Robert would become again the man who wanted no one upset. 6 weeks before he died, Robert had an appointment at St. Agnes Medical Center to update his cardiac care plan. The doctor wanted emergency contacts clarified. Hospital permissions. Billing details. Medication access. Those dry little forms no one wants to think about until they become the only things anyone looks at. I had printed everything and placed it in a blue folder. Robert sat at the kitchen table, breathing through his nose, his reading glasses low on his face. I pointed to one line. "Healthcare decision maker." He looked tired. "You," he said. "Then we should write that." He rubbed his forehead. "Melissa may have feelings about that." "Robert." "I know. I'm your wife." "I know." "Then why does that sentence feel like an argument?" He looked at me for a long time. His eyes were soft, sad, and evasive all at once. "It shouldn't," he said. "But it does." He reached for my hand. "Let me talk to her first." I had heard that sentence before. "Will you?" "Yes." "When?" "This week." He squeezed my fingers. "This week, Ellen." "I promise." He did call Melissa. I know because I heard part of it from the hallway. "No, sweetheart, that's not what I mean. Of course your mother mattered. No one is rewriting anything. I'm just trying to make sure Ellen can help if something happens." Then his voice dropped. I did not hear the rest. When he came back to the kitchen, his face looked gray. "She's emotional," he said. "She's always emotional when emotion lets her win." That was sharper than I usually spoke. Robert looked wounded. "She lost her mother." I lost mine too. He looked away. I just need a little more time. You always need a little more time. He did not answer. 2 days later, Melissa texted the family group chat. Dad says St. Agnes needs updated forms. I'll handle Portal so he doesn't get confused. Robert responded with a thumbs up. I responded, thank you. Thank you. I would stare at those 2 words weeks later and feel embarrassed by how grateful I had been to be relieved of paperwork that turned out to be my removal. The week before Robert died, he asked me to drive him to the old Carter insurance office. He had sold the business 3 years earlier, but he still kept a storage room in the back of the building. The new owner, a young man named Kevin, let him keep boxes there because he liked Robert and because Robert had trained half the insurance agents in our county. It was raining that afternoon. Robert sat in the passenger seat with a wool blanket over his knees, watching the town slide past the window. You sure you don't want me to go in with you? I asked when we parked behind the office. No, he said. Just a few papers I need to check. You checking papers is how we end up with 6 more boxes in the garage. He smiled, but it faded quickly. There are things I should have organized sooner. I thought he meant policies. Tax records. Old client files. Robert, nothing in that building is more important than your breathing. He looked at me then, really looked, in a way he had not done much near the end. His face had thinned. His eyes seemed larger, almost boyish. You always make it sound simple. It is simple. No, he said. It isn't. I was tired that day. Tired enough not to be gentle. Most things are, Robert. People make them complicated because simple requires courage. He turned away. I regretted it immediately, but not enough to apologize. Some truths sit between people whether you invite them or not. He went inside for 23 minutes. I know because I watched the dashboard clock and worried every time the rain thickened. When he came back, he was carrying nothing. Find what you needed? I asked. He buckled his seatbelt with shaking hands. Not yet. 3 days later, he died in our kitchen. It was early morning. I was making oatmeal because the doctor had said oatmeal was good for his heart, and Robert had made a face like a child being sentenced. He was at the table reading the paper, or pretending to. He said my name once. Not loudly. Just, Ellen. I turned and saw his hand pressed against his chest. The ambulance came in 9 minutes. I remember the paramedics' boots squeaking on the floor I had mopped the night before. I remember standing on the porch in my slippers while they loaded him in. I remember Melissa arriving at the hospital with perfect hair, saying, "Why didn't anyone call me sooner?" even though I had called her before I called Ruth. He died at 7:42 a.m. The nurse asked me if I wanted a few minutes with him. Melissa said, "We all do." She stood on one side of the bed. Daniel stood on the other. I stood near his feet because there was nowhere else to stand. At the time, I thought grief had crowded me out. Later, I understood they had simply stepped into positions they already believed were theirs. The funeral was small but full. Robert had insured half the town at one point or another. People came with casseroles, stories, sympathy cards, and the kind of grief that belongs to a public man. They told me he had been decent. Fair. A gentleman. They told Melissa he had been a wonderful father. They told Daniel he had left a good legacy. They told me, "You took such good care of him." Not often, "I'm sorry you lost your husband." Mostly that. "You took such good care of him." As if I had been hired. I noticed it, then scolded myself for noticing. Grief makes people awkward. Maybe they did not know what to call me because blended families make everyone afraid of saying the wrong thing. The memorial dinner was Melissa's idea. Dad wouldn't want anything fancy, she said 2 days after the burial, standing in my kitchen with her laptop open on the counter. Just church basement, food, some photos, people sharing stories. I was still wearing Robert's old cardigan over my pajamas. I had not washed my hair. Sympathy cards were stacked near the toaster. "That sounds fine," I said. She typed without looking at me. "I'll handle the guest list." "Thank you." "And the program?" "All right." "And the slideshow?" "Daniel can help." I nodded. There was a pause. Melissa looked up. "We'll probably keep it mostly family photos. Childhood, mom, us kids, grandkids. You understand." There it was again. The soft door closing. "I was married to him for 18 years, I said." Her face changed just enough. "I know that. I have photos too." "I didn't mean you can't send any." But she had meant something. Not that exactly, but something close enough that my chest tightened. Robert would have said, "Melissa, don't make this hard." Except Robert was gone. So I said nothing. I sent 12 photos that afternoon. Robert in our garden. Robert asleep with Lila's baby blanket over his shoulder. Robert holding a mug that said "World's Okayest Husband." Robert laughing on our back porch with his oxygen tube tucked behind one ear. At the dinner, only one of those photos appeared. It came near the end, on a slide titled "Friends and Neighbors." That was before I found the seat card. After Melissa said, "Less confusing," I heard myself ask, "Confusing to whom?" She lowered her voice. "Ellen, please. This is not the time." I looked around the room again. People were laughing softly, telling Robert stories, balancing plates on their laps. Lila had frosting on her fingers. Abby was watching me from near the lemonade table. Daniel glanced in our direction, then looked away. I folded the card once, sharply, and put it in my purse. I sat at the back. The meal passed in pieces. A woman across from me asked how long I had known Robert. I said, 20 years. She smiled. "That's nice. Old friends are such a blessing." I looked down at my fork and could not remember what food was on my plate. When Pastor Janice tapped the microphone, the room quieted. She spoke kindly. She had known Robert for years. She talked about service, patience, quiet generosity. Then she invited the family to stand. Melissa stood. Daniel stood. The grandchildren stood. A few cousins at the front table stood. I remained seated for half a second too long, waiting for someone to look at me. No one did. Ruth, who had come late and was standing near the back wall, caught my eye. Her face did not change much, but her mouth tightened. I stood. A man at my table glanced at my seat card, then back at me, uncertain. Pastor Janice read names from a paper. Robert's daughter, Melissa. His son, Daniel. His grandchildren, Abby, Noah, and Lila. The list continued. My name was not on it. Melissa dabbed her eyes with a tissue. I stood 6 tables away from my husband's photograph while people clapped for his family. Afterward, Daniel found me near the coat rack. "Hey," he said. "You doing okay?" It was the sort of question that lets the asker feel generous without risking an answer. "No," I said. He blinked. I had surprised both of us. He glanced toward Melissa. "Yeah. It's a hard day." "Daniel, why was my seat card printed with my maiden name?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "I don't know. Melissa did the cards." "And why did it say family friend?" His eyes moved away from mine. "Ellen, I think she was just trying to avoid awkward explanations." "What explanation?" He sighed. "You know how people are. They ask questions. Dad had a whole life before. Before me, I said. I didn't mean it like that. But you let it mean that. He looked tired suddenly, and for 1 second I saw the boy he must have been after his mother died. That was always the problem with Daniel. He made me feel sorry for him at the exact moment I needed to be angry. Can we talk about this another day? He asked. I can't do this here. I almost apologized. That is how deep the habit ran. I almost said, of course. I'm sorry. Instead, I said, another day. I was reaching for my coat when a church volunteer named Marcy hurried toward me with a white envelope. Ellen? Melissa said to give this to you before you left. My first foolish thought was that it might be a note. An apology, maybe. Some explanation that would let me go home and cry without having to rethink 18 years. The envelope was not sealed. Inside was an invoice from the caterer. Balance due, $1,184.60. There was a yellow sticky note in Melissa's handwriting. Can you take care of the remaining balance? Dad would appreciate it. For a few seconds, the church basement noise faded into a dull hum. The same family that had decided I was too confusing to list as Robert's wife had no confusion about who should pay the bill. Ruth appeared beside me. She looked at the invoice, then at my face. Give me your keys, she said. I can drive. I didn't ask. I handed them over. Neither of us spoke until we were in my car. Rain tapped lightly on the windshield. People were still leaving the church, carrying foil-covered plates and shaking hands under the awning. Ruth sat behind the wheel and stared straight ahead. I was going to behave, she said. I know. I was going to let you decide what you needed. I know. But if I see that woman in the next 5 minutes, I may become unchristian. I laughed once. It came out wrong, almost like a cough. Then I cried so suddenly that I bent forward over my purse, one hand pressed to my mouth, the other gripping that folded seat card through the leather as if it might escape. Ruth did not touch me. She knew better. She just sat there, letting the heater run, letting me fall apart without making me perform gratitude for comfort. When I could breathe again, she said, "You're coming home with me tonight." I should go home. To what? His chair? The flowers? That bill? I closed my eyes. I don't know what I am now, I said. Ruth put the car in reverse. Tonight, you're someone who doesn't need to sleep in that house. At Ruth's, she made toast I did not eat and tea I held until it went cold. Her living room looked the way it always had, cluttered but kind. Knitting basket by the chair. Books stacked on the floor. A lamp with a crooked shade. Her late husband's fishing hat still hanging by the door, 12 years after his death. She did not ask questions until almost midnight. Then she said, "What do you want to do?" I don't know. That's allowed. I want to understand if it was just Melissa. Ruth's eyes sharpened. What do you mean? I took the seat card from my purse and placed it on her coffee table. She didn't just write the wrong name. She wrote my old name. She wrote a roll. She thought about it. Ruth said nothing. And Daniel saw it. Pastor Janice read the family list from somewhere. The slideshow was arranged. The invoice came to me. None of that happened by accident. No, Ruth said quietly. It didn't. I looked at the folded card. What if this is what they always thought I was? Ruth took off her glasses and rubbed the bridge of her nose. Ellen. No, really. What if I was the only one pretending? You were his wife. Privately. She put her glasses back on. That counts. Does it? Ruth did not answer quickly. That was why I trusted her. Finally she said, "It should." I slept for maybe 2 hours in her guest room. At 5:13 a.m., I woke up with one clear thought. The invoice. Not because I cared about the caterer. The caterer would be paid. I had never let a bill sit unpaid in my life. But something about that envelope would not leave me alone. Dad would appreciate it. Robert was dead. He did not appreciate anything now. That note was not about him. It was about using his name one more time to make me do what they wanted. At 7, Ruth drove me home. The house smelled stale, like flowers dying in too many vases. Robert's recliner faced the television. His blanket was folded over the arm. His pill organizer still sat on the counter because I had not been able to throw it away. I walked past all of it and went to the small desk in the kitchen where I kept household papers. Robert used to tease me about my folders. Receipts for receipts, he'd say. And you always know where your receipts are because of me. That is true. I opened the drawer marked medical. The first folder was Robert's final hospital stay. I had already seen most of it, or thought I had. Bills, discharge instructions, prescription changes, insurance summaries. I spread the papers across the kitchen table. The first thing that caught my eye was not a bill. It was a form from St. Agnes Medical Center, dated 6 weeks before Robert died. Patient, Robert Allen Carter. Primary emergency contact, Melissa Carter, daughter. Secondary emergency contact, Daniel Carter, son. Financially responsible party, Ellen Brooks. Relationship to patient, non-family caregiver. I sat down slowly. Ellen Brooks. Not Ellen Carter. Non-family caregiver. I read it again, because sometimes a word changes if you hate it enough. It did not. I remembered that hospital visit. Robert had been dizzy. His blood pressure had dropped. I had driven him to St. Agnes in the rain, parked illegally near the emergency entrance, and argued with a nurse who said only family could go back. I'm his wife, I had said. She checked the screen. Then she said, let me see what I can do. At the time, I thought hospital systems were messy. Now I stared at the form and realized systems usually say what someone told them to say. I pulled another folder. Home care. On the contract for the home health aide, my bank account was listed for billing. The family decision-maker line had Melissa's name. On the medical equipment rental agreement, I was responsible for payment. Daniel was listed as authorized family representative. On the pharmacy delivery account, I was the payer. Melissa was the contact. One after another, the same shape appeared. My account. Their authority. My responsibility. Their name. I went to the pantry and stood there for a minute without knowing why. Then I came back to the table and kept reading. At 8:30, my phone rang. Melissa. I watched her name glow on the screen. For years, I had answered Melissa quickly. Not warmly, always, but quickly. If she called, something needed doing. A pickup. A recipe. A check. A time. A key. Robert would look at me over the newspaper, grateful that I was handling what he did not want to. This time I let it ring. She called again. Then a text arrived. Can you send payment to the caterer today? They emailed me again. A second text came before I could even set the phone down. Also, Pastor Janice needs final donation for room use. Dad always gave $300. Dad always gave. I looked at the hospital form again. Non-family caregiver. I typed, then deleted 3 different responses. Finally I wrote. Please forward all memorial-related invoices to the family contact listed on your program. I watched the little bubble appear. Then disappear. Then appear again. Her reply came 2 minutes later. That's unnecessary. I did not answer. A few seconds later. Ellen, everyone is grieving. Please don't make this about a place card. There it was. A place card. I had been married for 18 years. I had carried Robert's oxygen tank, changed his sheets, cut his pills, paid his bills, sat beside him through scans and blood draws, and held his hand in the emergency room while he pretended not to be afraid. But Melissa needed it to be a place card. Because if it was only a place card, then I was petty. If it was not only a place card, then they had to explain the rest. I called St. Agnes Medical Center at 9:05. It took 38 minutes to reach someone in billing. The woman on the phone sounded young and tired. Her name was Amber. I'm trying to understand why I'm listed as non-family caregiver on my husband's forms, I said. Okay, ma'am. I can look at the account if you verify some information. I verified Robert's birth date, address, last 4 digits of his social security number, and the amount of the last payment because of course I knew that. Amber clicked through screens. I see you listed as financially responsible. Yes. And the patient's daughter is primary family contact. I understand that part. I'm asking who changed my relationship field. More clicking. I can't see all edits, ma'am. Can you see any? A pause. The current version was updated on January 14th. That was 6 weeks before Robert died. By whom? I'm not sure I can disclose internal user information. Was it updated by someone at the hospital, or by family paperwork? Another pause. It looks like the form was submitted through the patient portal. Robert hated computers. I managed his portal. Or I thought I did. Which email is attached to the portal? I asked. She read it out. It was Melissa's. After I hung up, I sat at the kitchen table until the sunlight moved from one side of the papers to the other. Then I opened my bank account. I had avoided doing that after Robert died. Not because I didn't know our finances, but because every charge still felt like evidence that life had continued without permission. Pharmacy. Electric. Insurance. Grocery. The last automatic draft for Robert's cardiologist. The home health aide. The oxygen equipment. Then I noticed charges I had stopped seeing years ago because they had become background noise. Millbrook Music Academy, $145 monthly. Noah's guitar lessons. I had agreed to pay for 6 months when Daniel was between jobs. That had been 4 years ago. Bright Steps lunch account, $88.50 monthly. Melissa's youngest daughter, Lila. Private school lunch plan. Melissa had said she just needed help until the new semester. That had been 2 years ago. Carter Auto Finance, $310 monthly. Daniel's minivan. I stared at that one for a long time. Robert had told me he was helping Daniel catch up after a medical leave. I remembered writing the first check because Robert's hands were shaking that week and he asked me to handle it. Apparently, I had kept handling it. I printed 3 months of statements. Then 6. Then 12. The printer whined like it resented the work. By noon, my kitchen table was covered with proof that I had been financing a family table where I was not allowed to sit. Ruth came over with sandwiches. She looked at the papers and said, "Well, I know." No, I mean well as in, if I start swearing, I may not stop. I handed her the hospital form. She read it. Her face went still. Non-family caregiver. I know. Who filled this out? Melissa's email was on the portal. Ruth sat down. For a while, we sorted without speaking. Ruth made piles. Medical. School. Auto. Church. Unknown. She had been a librarian for 30 years, and her anger came with categories. At 1:14, my phone rang again. Daniel. This time I answered. "Hey," he said, too casual. "You got a minute?" "I have several." He sighed. "Melissa says you're refusing to pay the caterer." I told her to send it to the family contact. "Ellen." I waited. "Come on," he said. "You know she didn't mean anything by that card. Did you see it before dinner?" Silence. "Daniel." "I saw the table layout," he said. "Did you see my card?" Another pause. "Maybe." "Maybe?" "I didn't print them." "Did you tell her to change it?" "No." "Did you tell her not to?" He breathed out slowly. I could picture him standing in his garage, one hand on his hip, looking at the floor because eye contact had always been too expensive for him. "Ellen, yesterday was hard for everyone. You keep saying that like I had an easy day." "I'm not saying that." "Then say what you are saying." "I'm saying Melissa is overwhelmed. She handled a lot. Dad's death hit her hard." I looked at the stack of bills. "Robert's death hit me too." "I know." "Do you?" "That's not fair. Neither was listing me as a family friend at my husband's memorial dinner." He was quiet. Then he said, softer, "Abby asked about that." Something in me moved. "What did she ask?" "She asked why you weren't sitting with us." "What did you say?" "I said you wanted to sit with Ruth." I closed my eyes. "Why would you say that?" I didn't know what else to say. The truth was available. He made a frustrated sound. The truth would have made everyone uncomfortable. I almost laughed. There it was again. The family constitution, spoken plainly for once. Truth was not rejected because it was false. It was rejected because it made the wrong people uncomfortable. I said, "Daniel, I'm reviewing all automatic payments connected to your family." "What does that mean?" "It means if a payment is not mine, I'm going to stop paying it." His voice changed. "Not much. Just enough." "Which payments?" "The Music Academy, 4-1. Ellen, Noah loves those lessons." "I know." "Then why would you cancel them?" "Because I'm not his parent." "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Don't use what happened yesterday to punish the kids." My hand tightened around the phone. "I have been very careful with your children, Daniel. Don't use them as a shield because you don't like the word no." He did not answer. I heard a door close on his end. "Can we talk about this in person?" he asked. "No." "Why not?" "Because in person, you look sad, and I start taking responsibility for feelings that are not mine." That sentence surprised me. It must have been waiting somewhere, fully formed. Daniel was quiet for so long I thought he had hung up. Finally he said, "Dad wouldn't want this. There are names people use like leashes. Dad. Robert. Mom. Family." I looked at Robert's recliner through the kitchen doorway. "No," I said. "Your father would want peace." "Well, yes. That's not the same thing." I hung up before he could make me explain. For the first time since Robert died, the house did not feel empty. It felt crowded with every version of me that had ever swallowed a sentence. That afternoon, I drove to First Methodist. Pastor Janice was in her office, surrounded by hymnals, donation envelopes, and half-dead plants she kept trying to revive. She had known me long enough not to pretend she was surprised. "I was hoping you'd come," she said. That almost made me leave. "Did you know?" I asked. She removed her reading glasses. "About the seat card?" "Yes." She folded her hands on the desk. I saw the final table list the morning of the dinner. And you didn't ask? I did. What did Melissa say? Pastor Janice looked pained. She said the family had decided to keep the front table for blood relatives because emotions were delicate. Blood relatives. The phrase hit me in the stomach. I was his wife. I know. But you read the family list without my name. She looked down. I should have stopped. Why didn't you? Her answer took too long, which meant it would probably be honest. Because Melissa said you preferred not to be put on the spot. I let that sit between us. Did that sound like me? No, she said quietly. But it sounded convenient. She flinched. I regretted the sharpness, then decided to leave it where it was. Pastor Janice opened a drawer and pulled out a folder. I made copies of the program draft. I don't know why. Maybe because something felt off. She handed me a sheet of paper. It was the original memorial program. On the second page, under survived by, my name appeared. His wife, Ellen Carter. It was crossed out in blue pen. Above it, someone had written. Please remove. Keep focus on original family. I recognized Melissa's handwriting. Not because I had studied it, but because for 18 years she had written labels on casserole dishes, gift tags, school forms, holiday schedules, and sticky notes asking me to do things she did not want to do. Keep focus on original family. I folded the paper carefully. Pastor Janice said, Ellen, I'm sorry. I nodded. It was not enough, but it was something. On the way home, I stopped at the grocery store because grief does not stop milk from expiring. I was standing in the cereal aisle when I heard my name. Mrs. Carter? I turned. Abby stood there holding a basket with bananas and cat food. She looked older than 20 somehow. Grief had sharpened her face. Hi, honey, I said. Her eyes filled immediately. I had not seen her cry at the funeral. Some young people hold themselves together in public because adults have taught them their sadness creates work. She stepped toward me, then stopped like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to hug me. I opened my arms. She came into them so quickly that the bananas pressed between us. I'm sorry, she whispered. For what? For yesterday. I closed my eyes. You don't owe me an apology. Yes, I do. No. You really don't. She pulled back and wiped her face with her sleeve. I asked Mom why your card said that. What did she say? Abby gave a small, bitter laugh. She said families are complicated. They are. She said you understood. I looked at this girl I had driven to dance class, picked up from school, sat with through a stomach virus, bought prom shoes for because Melissa forgot the store closed early on Sunday. She was not my granddaughter by blood. But I knew how she took her coffee. I knew she hated peas. I knew she bit the inside of her cheek when she was trying not to cry. No, I said gently. I didn't understand. Abby looked down. Grandpa would have hated that card. I wanted that to comfort me. It did not. Because I knew Robert well enough to know he would have hated it privately. He would have been hurt by it. He might have taken my hand under the table. Later, he would have told me Melissa didn't mean it that way. But would he have changed it? That was the question beginning to form under every other question. I touched Abby's cheek. I loved your grandfather, I said. I know. And I love you. Her face crumpled. But I can't keep pretending things didn't hurt just because everyone else prefers it quiet. She nodded, though I could see she did not fully understand. She was 20. She still believed love and fairness eventually found each other if people cared enough. I almost told her to call me anytime. The words rose out of habit. Then I stopped. Not because I wanted to punish her. Because I needed, for once, to let someone else decide whether they wanted me without being handed instructions. So I only said, "Take care of yourself, Abby." At home, there were 3 voicemails. Melissa. Melissa again. Daniel. I did not listen to them. I made scrambled eggs for dinner because Robert had hated breakfast food at night and I suddenly wanted something he would not have chosen. I ate at the kitchen table among the papers, the folded seat card beside my plate. After dinner, I opened the family group chat. It had been named Carter Crew for years. The photo at the top was from Thanksgiving 6 years earlier. Everyone stood on Robert's porch in sweaters and scarves. I had taken the picture. My shadow was visible at the bottom of the frame. I scrolled back through messages, looking for nothing and everything. Melissa asking if I could bring pies. Daniel asking if anyone had jumper cables. Robert sending blurry photos of birds at the feeder. Me reminding everyone about his cardiology appointment. Melissa replying with a thumbs up. Me asking who could sit with Robert the following Tuesday. No response. Me saying never mind, I moved my dental appointment. Daniel replying thanks, Ellen. Not thank you for changing your life. Not we appreciate it. Just thanks, Ellen. I scrolled until my thumb ached. Near the previous January, I found Melissa's message. Dad says St. Agnes needs updated forms. I'll handle Portal so he doesn't get confused. Robert's thumbs up sat under it like a little blue stamp of surrender. Then a new message appeared. Claire. Not in the group chat. A private text. Are you awake? Claire was Daniel's wife. She had always been kind in careful ways. She would help clear dishes but never stay too long in the kitchen with me. She would ask how Robert was doing but lower her voice if Melissa entered. She remembered my birthday once and then seemed embarrassed by it. I typed, yes. The reply came slowly. I'm sorry about the card. I waited. Another message. I should have said something. Then a photo came through. It was a screenshot of a text thread I had never seen. The top showed Melissa, Daniel, Claire, and Robert. No me. The date was 6 weeks before the memorial dinner. Melissa, for Dad's paperwork, don't list Ellen as spouse on decision-making forms unless absolutely necessary. It creates confusion. Daniel, isn't she legally his wife? Melissa, yes, but emotionally that's different. Claire, what does that mean? Melissa, it means Dad gets sentimental and Ellen starts thinking she has a say in family matters. Keep her as billing/contact if needed but not family authority. I read it once. Then again. Robert had not replied in the visible part. I typed with one shaking finger. Was Robert in this thread? Claire answered. Yes. Did he respond later? The typing bubble appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. He called Daniel. I don't know what he said. A minute later. I'm sorry. I know this is cowardly over text. I just thought you should know it wasn't a mistake. I set the phone face down on the table. Not because I was angry at Claire. Because if I kept looking, I might ask her to explain people she had no power to fix. That night I dreamed of the school office. Children lined up with pickup slips, but every slip had my name crossed out. I kept trying to tell them I worked there. No one was rude. They simply could not see me behind the desk. The next morning, I called the bank. Stopping automatic payments should be simple if you believe money belongs to the person whose account it leaves. It is not always simple. Some drafts had been authorized through Robert's old email. Some through my debit card. Some through forms I had signed years earlier when someone was in a temporary crisis that had quietly become permanent. The woman at the bank, Patricia, was patient. "You'll need to come in for the auto finance draft," she said. "That one is attached through an ACH authorization." "I didn't buy the car." "I understand." "I'm not on the car." "I understand." "Then why is my account paying for it?" A pause. "Because someone authorized payment from your account." That was the thing about systems. They did not care who should have done something. Only who had. I made an appointment for 2 o'clock. Before I left, I opened Robert's closet. His clothes still hung in patient rows. Dress shirts arranged by color. Suits and garment bags. The navy sweater I bought him in Vermont. The old cardigan with a hole near the cuff. I wanted to smell him. That embarrassed me, but I did. I pressed my face into the cardigan and breathed in wool, cedar, and the faint soap scent that had always been Robert. For a minute, I missed him so hard that the anger slipped. That was another truth people do not say enough. You can hate what someone allowed and still want to hear his voice in the next room. You can find proof of his cowardice and still fold his sweater instead of letting it fall. I sat on the closet floor with the cardigan in my lap. "Why didn't you fix this?" I whispered. The house gave no answer. At the bank, Patricia printed forms with highlighted signature lines. She had kind eyes and a silver chain for her glasses. "I'm sorry for your loss," she said after checking my ID. "Thank you." We went through the payments one by one. Millbrook Music Academy could be stopped immediately. Bright Steps lunch account required a separate login. Carter Auto Finance would send a notice to Daniel because the draft was linked to his loan but paid through my account. Patricia frowned at that one. "Are you sure you want to stop it today?" Sometimes people prefer to notify the loan holder first. The loan holder has been notified for 4 years every time my account paid his bill. She looked up. I had not meant to sound sharp. But Patricia only nodded. "I'll process it." The final payment was for Caring Hands Home Support, the agency that had sent aids after Robert's last hospitalization. There was a remaining balance of $2,740. I had expected that one. It was mine, at least in feeling. I had arranged it. I had needed help. Robert had been my husband. Then Patricia said, "Future statements are currently set to go to Melissa Carter." "What future statements?" "The balance transfer notice." "No," I said. "The billing came to me. The statements did. But the account authority is Melissa Carter." I stared at her. "Can you print that?" She hesitated. "I can print the authorization page if you're listed as payer." "I am." She printed it. Account payer, Ellen Brooks. Authorized family representative, Melissa Carter. Relationship of payer, caregiver. The word no longer shocked me. That scared me more than the first time. Patricia slid the page across the desk. "Do you want a folder?" she asked. It was such a small kindness that my eyes filled. "Yes," I said. "Please." When I got home, there was a car in my driveway. Melissa's white SUV. She was sitting on my front porch bench wearing sunglasses though the day was overcast. She had a paper cup of coffee in one hand and her phone in the other. The sight of her there, in the place where Robert used to sit and clean mud from his gardening shoes, made me tired before she spoke. "We need to talk," she said. "No, we don't." I walked past her and unlocked the door. She followed me in. I turned. "I didn't invite you." Her mouth tightened. "This is my father's house." There it was. I had wondered when she would say it. The house was not grand. 3 bedrooms, peeling paint near the porch, a kitchen window that stuck in summer. Robert had bought it with Kathleen in 1984. After she died, he nearly lost it during a bad business year. After I married him, I paid off the line of credit that kept the roof over our heads. I refinanced it with him. My name was on the mortgage. My hands had painted the guest room. My knees had planted the tulips. But to Melissa, it remained her father's house. I set my purse on the table. "It was your father's house," I said. "It is my home." "Are we really doing that?" "Apparently." She removed her sunglasses. Her eyes were red, and for a moment I saw a real grief there. "I wish it had made things simpler." "Dad has been gone 3 weeks, she said. 3 weeks. And you're already canceling things for his grandchildren." "I canceled payments that should not have been mine." "No one forced you." I laughed softly. That was not the sound I expected from myself. Melissa's eyes flashed. "What?" "No one forced me," I repeated. "That's what makes it so clean for you, isn't it?" I said yes enough times that eventually you all forgot asking was part of it. She folded her arms. "You loved helping. I loved the children." "Same thing." "No. It isn't." She looked toward the living room. Her gaze landed on Robert's recliner, and her face changed. For a second, I thought she might soften. Instead she said, "He would be embarrassed by how you're acting." My anger came quietly. No heat. No shaking. Just a door closing. "Your father watched me be embarrassed for years." She stared at me. "That's unfair." "Yes," I said. "It was." She opened her mouth, then shut it. I took the folder from my purse and placed the hospital form on the table. "Why did St. Agnes list me as non-family caregiver?" She glanced at it too quickly. "I don't know. Your email was on the portal." "I handled forms because Dad asked me to." "Did he ask you to remove wife?" She pushed the paper back as if it smelled bad. "You're twisting this." "Then straighten it." "Fine." She leaned forward, voice low. "My mother was his wife too." "I never said she wasn't." "You came in after." "After what?" "After the life that made us a family." I looked at her then. Really looked. Beneath the polish and control, Melissa was still standing guard at the door of a house that had burned down decades ago. I said, "I did not take your mother's place." "You don't get to decide that." "No. But you don't get to take mine either." Her face hardened. "You were Dad's wife. Legally. No one is denying that. Legally. There are words people choose because they want to give you the smallest possible version of the truth." "Legally," I said. She lifted her chin. "Emotionally, it was complicated." "And financially?" She blinked. I spread the bank printouts on the table. Music lessons. Lunch account. Auto loan. Medical equipment. Home care. Was that complicated too? For the first time, Melissa did not have an immediate answer. I watched her scan the pages. Her eyes moved faster than someone seeing information for the first time. "You knew," I said. She looked up. "I knew Dad helped sometimes." "Dad didn't pay these." "I did." "You and Dad were married. That's shared money." "My retirement account paid Daniel's car." "That was temporary." "For 4 years?" She looked away. "Melissa. What do you want me to say?" she snapped. "That everything was perfect?" It wasn't. Dad was sick. Daniel was struggling. I had kids. You were better with paperwork. You liked being needed. There it was again. The story she needed to tell herself. I liked being needed. Not, "We needed you." Not, we used that need. I gathered the papers slowly. I'm not paying the caterer. Her eyes narrowed. This is about the money now? No. It was always about what the money revealed. She stood. You're going to regret turning this into a war. I almost smiled, but not because I felt victorious. Because Melissa still thought a war required two sides fighting for the same territory. I'm not turning it into a war, I said. I'm leaving the battlefield. She did not understand then. That was fine. I barely understood it myself. After she left, I locked the door and leaned against it until my legs stopped shaking. Then I went to the kitchen table and wrote a list. Not a dramatic list. Not a revenge plan. Just names of accounts. Music Academy. Bright Steps. Carter Auto. Caring Hands. Pharmacy. Church. Family phone plan. Streaming service. Storage room. Storage room. I stared at that one. Robert had a small storage room at the old insurance office. I paid $60 a month for it through the business account we never closed. He had gone there the week before he died. Find what you needed? Not yet. The next morning, I called Kevin at Carter Insurance. Mrs. Carter, he said warmly. I'm so sorry about Robert. He was good to me. Thank you, Kevin. You need something from the old room? Yes. Of course. I can meet you this afternoon. The office was on Maple Street, between a barber shop and a tax preparer. The sign still had Carter in small letters under Kevin's new logo, formerly Carter Insurance Services. Robert had pretended not to care that his name remained there, but every time we drove past, his eyes moved toward it. Kevin unlocked the back door at 3:30. Take whatever time you need, he said. There's mostly old boxes. I kept telling him to let me clear it out. He wasn't good at letting go. Kevin smiled sadly. No, ma'am. The storage room smelled of paper, dust, and old carpet glue. Metal shelves lined the walls. Boxes were labeled in Robert's neat handwriting. Client Files 2008. Tax Records 2014. Christmas Decorations Office. Kathleen Personal. I stopped at that one. Kathleen Personal. The tape was yellowed. I did not open it. That restraint cost me more than I expected. On the lowest shelf near the back was a plastic file crate labeled Home. Inside were folders. Insurance policies. Appliance manuals. Old warranties. Mortgage refinance papers. And a black notebook. I recognized it immediately. Robert had carried those notebooks for business. He liked graph paper. Said lined paper made his thoughts feel fenced in. This one had no label. I opened it expecting account numbers or old passwords. The first pages were notes from client meetings. Long-term care planning. Beneficiaries. Coverage gaps. Questions to ask adult children. Robert had always been thorough. Halfway through, the notes changed. Not clients. Us. Household emergency list. Medication schedule. Ellen knows all vendors. Melissa emotional, keep medical explanations brief. Daniel avoidant, need specific tasks. Abby can help but do not burden. I sat on an upside-down box and kept reading. There were pages about Robert's care. Notes from doctor appointments written in his hand, not mine. Reminders to thank me. Reminders to ask Daniel to help with yard. Reminders to tell Melissa not to call only when she needed updates. Most reminders were unchecked. Then, near the back, I found the page. Family role concerns. Under it, Robert had written. Ellen handles everything. Kids prefer not to formalize her role. Melissa worries Ellen will make decisions without them. Daniel says leave it alone, not worth fight. Do not push this. It keeps the peace. The words sat on the page calmly, as if they had not just changed the weather inside the room. I read them again. Do not push this. It keeps the peace. Not, I did not know. Not, I did not see. Not, I misunderstood. He knew the shape of the arrangement. He named it. He chose not to disturb it. For years, I had defended Robert in my mind by telling myself he missed things. Men of his generation, I would think. Grief. Conflict avoidance. A soft heart. A weak spot where his children were concerned. But this was not blindness. This was strategy. A quiet, gentle, decent man had looked at the unfairness in his own house and decided that my discomfort was the least expensive option. I do not know how long I sat there. Kevin knocked once on the open door. You okay? I closed the notebook. No, I said. His face changed. Do you need help carrying anything? That was kind. He did not ask what I found. He did not pretend not to see my face. Yes, I said. The crate. At home, I placed the notebook on the kitchen table beside the seat card. Family friend. Do not push this. It keeps the peace. One was Melissa's cruelty. The other was Robert's permission. Together they made a language I had been hearing for 18 years without translation. That evening, Claire came over. She texted first from the driveway. I'm here. I can leave if you don't want this tonight. I looked through the curtains. She sat in her car with both hands on the steering wheel, engine running. She looked like someone about to confess to a teacher. I opened the door. She came in holding a manila envelope. I'm sorry, she said before she even sat down. You've said that. I know. I just don't know what else to start with. I made coffee because hospitality is hard to kill. We sat at the kitchen table where all the papers had begun to form a second life. Claire looked thinner than usual. She wore jeans and a gray sweater, no makeup, hair pulled back. Daniel doesn't know I'm here, she said. That sounds heavy. It is. She touched the envelope but did not open it. I should have said more years ago. About what? She looked at the seat card on the table. About all of it. I waited. Claire took a breath. Do you remember when Lila broke her wrist? Of course. Lila had been 6. She fell from the monkey bars at a birthday party. Melissa was at a work conference in Nashville. Daniel was supposed to be watching the kids but had taken Noah to soccer. Robert was at a cardiology appointment with me. The school called me because Lila told the nurse, call Grandma Ellen. I drove to the school, took her to urgent care, then the emergency room when they said the break was complicated. Lila cried until I sang old camp songs badly enough to distract her. I paid the emergency deposit because Melissa's insurance card on file had expired. The next morning, Melissa posted on Facebook. So thankful Dad was there for us last night. Family always shows up. Robert had not been there. He had been home, exhausted, asleep in his recliner. I remember, I said. Claire opened the envelope and slid a paper toward me. St. Agnes Pediatric Emergency Department. Payment receipt. My debit card. My signature. $865. I found it in our tax folder, Claire said. I don't know why Daniel kept it. I ran my fingers over my own signature. I knew I paid it. But did you know Melissa told everyone Robert did? I saw the post. Claire looked ashamed. There's more. She took out her phone and played a voicemail on speaker. Robert's voice filled my kitchen. Older. Tired. Alive. Claire, it's Robert. Listen, about last night, don't mention to Ellen how much she covered. She'll say it's fine, but I know it isn't fair. I'll talk to Melissa when things calm down. Just, not this week. Everyone stretched thin. The message ended. The refrigerator hummed. Claire whispered, he never talked to her. Not that week. No, I said. I kept that message because I thought someday Daniel might need to hear his father admit it. Has he? She shook her head. Why not? Her eyes filled. Because I'm a coward too. It was the first honest self-accusation I had heard from anyone in that family. I could not hate her in that moment. I wanted to. It would have been cleaner. Instead, I saw a woman who had married into the same house and learned a different version of silence. Claire had not been used the way I had, but she had been trained not to interrupt the people who were. Why now? I asked. She wiped under her eye. Because Abby called me last night crying. She said she thinks she let everyone treat you like you were optional because that's how we acted. And I realized if I don't tell the truth now, I'm teaching my daughter the same thing. I looked toward the living room, where Robert's recliner sat empty. What does Daniel think? Daniel thinks if everyone waits long enough, this will settle. That sounded like Daniel. Claire gave a tired smile. He learned from the best. I almost defended Robert. The habit rose like a reflex. Then I looked at the notebook. No. I did not defend him. Claire reached into the envelope again. There's one more thing. I don't know if it matters. It was a printed email from Robert to himself. The subject line was, Ellen. The date was 3 months before he died. Claire said, Daniel found it when he was helping with Dad's old laptop last winter. He printed it because he thought maybe it was about medical stuff. Then he put it away. I unfolded it. It was not long. Ellen is exhausted. Need to tell kids they have to step up. Need to clarify authority before hospital. Need to change forms. Need to stop letting M define family. I read the last line 3 times. Need to stop letting M define family. M. Melissa. Robert had written it. He had known exactly who was defining the room. He had known exactly who was being defined out of it. And then he had died with the forms unchanged. Claire said, I'm sorry. This time I almost told her to stop apologizing. But maybe apologies were the only currency she had left. So I said, thank you for bringing it. After she left, I took Robert's cardigan from the closet and folded it into a box. Not because I was ready. Because I needed to do something with my hands that did not involve calling the dead and demanding better answers. The next week moved strangely. People think grief is dramatic, but much of it is administrative. Death certificates. Account closures. Password resets. Donation acknowledgements. Medical refunds. Prescription cancellations. Insurance calls where strangers say, the deceased, because names would take too much time. I learned that being listed as payer made me responsible faster than being listed as wife gave me access. I learned that Melissa had already requested copies of Robert's death certificate for family matters. I learned that Daniel did not know how to log into his own car loan portal. I learned that Noah's Music Academy had never had Daniel's card on file. I learned that the church donation had been made in Robert's name for years from my checking account. Each discovery was small. None would have shocked anyone by itself. That was how a life was taken from a person without appearing stolen. A payment here. A name omitted there. A photo cropped. A form adjusted. A phrase softened. Not stepmother. Ellen. Not wife. Caregiver. Not family. Friend. Melissa tried several approaches. First anger. You are making Dad's death about yourself. Then guilt. The kids don't understand why you're pulling away. Then practicality. Can we at least handle the lunch account through the end of semester? Then softness. I know we've had our differences, but Dad loved you. Let's not damage what he built. That last one almost worked. Not because I believed her. Because Robert's love, flawed as it was, still mattered to me. I sat with that message for 20 minutes. Then I typed. What exactly did he build, Melissa? She did not respond. Daniel came by 2 days later. I watched him through the window before opening the door. He stood on the porch with his hands in his jacket pockets, looking at the welcome mat like it might tell him what kind of son he was. When I opened the door, he said, I'm not here to fight. Good. Can I come in? I hesitated. That hesitation hurt him. I saw it. I also saw him realize he had never before wondered whether my door opened automatically. I stepped aside. He stood in the living room awkwardly. Looks the same, he said. It's been 4 weeks. I didn't mean. I know. He looked at Robert's recliner. I miss him. So do I. That was the first true thing we had said to each other in days. He sat on the edge of the sofa. I remained standing. Claire told me she came here. Yes. She shouldn't have gotten involved. She was already involved. She just stopped pretending she wasn't. He rubbed his face. Ellen, I didn't know about all the payments. Which ones did you know about? He looked up. That was the question he hoped I would not ask. The car, he admitted. I nodded. And Noah's lessons. Anything else? I thought Dad was covering it. From which account? He looked away. Daniel. I didn't ask. No, I said. You didn't. He leaned forward, elbows on knees. After I lost my job, Dad said he'd help. I thought it was temporary. Then things got better, but every time I tried to bring it up, he said not to worry about it. Did you ever thank me? His face reddened. I didn't know it was you. Did you ever wonder? He said nothing. I sat down across from him. Daniel, I'm not angry because money left my account. I'm angry because respect never came back in its place. He swallowed. I respect you. No. You're fond of me. He looked wounded. I continued, because for once I could see the words through to the end. You like that I was kind to your kids. You like that I made holidays easier. You like that I took care of your father. You like that I don't make scenes. But respect requires something when Melissa is in the room. His eyes filled. He blinked hard. I don't know how to go against her. I know. She's my sister. And I was your father's wife. He looked at the floor. Dad should have handled this. Yes. He didn't like conflict. No, I said. He delegated it to me. Daniel flinched. I almost softened. Then I remembered the card. Family friend. I said, I'm stopping all payments connected to your household. I'll send you the information you need. You have 30 days on anything that requires transition. He nodded slowly. Okay. That surprised me. Then he said, can the kids still call you? My chest tightened. Do they want to? Of course they do. Then they can call me. He looked relieved. But I'm not going to be the invisible safety net anymore. His relief faded into something more complicated. I don't know what that looks like. Neither do I said. That's probably why it needs to happen. When he left, he hugged me at the door. It was stiff at first. Then his shoulders shook once. I'm sorry, he said into my shoulder. It was the first apology from him that did not have an explanation attached. I let myself hold him for 3 seconds. Then I stepped back. Forgiveness, I was beginning to understand, did not require restoring access. 2 Sundays after the memorial dinner, I went to church for the first time since the service. Not First Methodist. I could not sit under Pastor Janice's apology yet. I went to a smaller church on the other side of town where no one knew where Robert liked to sit. I slipped into the back pew just as the opening hymn began. The sermon was about mercy. I wish I could tell you it moved me. Mostly I watched families. A man helped his wife remove her coat. A teenage boy rolled his eyes when his grandmother kissed his cheek. A mother passed crackers to a toddler. An older couple sat with a space between them that looked comfortable from decades of practice. I wondered how many roles in that room were named correctly. After the service, I drove not home, but to the cemetery. Robert's grave still looked raw. The grass had not grown back. Temporary marker. Flowers from the funeral browning at the edges. Kathleen was buried beside him. Her stone was simple and pretty. Kathleen Marie Carter. Beloved wife and mother. Robert would be buried between 2 women eventually, though my name would not be on that stone. We had decided years earlier that I wanted cremation. At the time, it had felt practical. Now I wondered if some part of me had known not to ask for space in ground already claimed. I stood there with my hands in my coat pockets. I found the notebook, I said. Wind moved through the bare trees. You knew. A crow called somewhere beyond the fence. I keep trying to make it kinder than it was. That was the closest I came to crying. You loved me, I said. I know that. But you loved peace more. I waited, as if the dead might object. They did not. I took the folded seat card from my pocket. I had begun carrying it with me, not as punishment but as evidence against my own tendency to minimize. I placed it on Robert's temporary grave marker. Ellen Brooks. Family friend. It looked obscene there. After a moment, I picked it back up. No, I said. You don't get to keep this either. At home, there was a letter in the mailbox from Caring Hands Home Support. Final notice. The envelope was addressed to me. Inside, the account summary listed Melissa as authorized representative again. I called them Monday morning. The woman on the phone said, "We can't change the authorized representative without Ms. Carter's approval." I'm the payer. Yes, ma'am. And Robert was my husband. Yes, ma'am, but the authorization on file was created through his daughter. Yes. Then send the bill to her. We can send copies to both parties. No. Remove my payment method. A pause. There is a remaining balance. I'll pay the remaining balance for services rendered while my husband was alive. I will not leave my account attached to anything Melissa controls. She lowered her voice. I understand. That surprised me. You do? My mother went through something similar with my stepbrothers. For 1 second, the professional wall dropped. 2 women on a phone line, recognizing a pattern. Then she said, I can email the removal form. Thank you. That afternoon, Melissa posted on Facebook again. A photo of Robert from 20 years earlier, standing with her and Daniel at a lake. Kathleen must have taken the picture. The caption read, "Some bonds can never be replaced. Missing our real family today." Real family. People commented with hearts. So beautiful. He loved you kids so much. Nothing like blood. Your mom and dad would be proud. Abby liked the post. Then unliked it. I saw both because I was looking when I should not have been. Ruth called 5 minutes later. Do not answer that online. I wasn't going to. You were thinking about it. I was thinking near it. Step away from the internet, Ellen. I laughed despite myself. I found his notebook, I said. Ruth went quiet. And? He knew. She did not ask what. Maybe by then there was only one thing to know. Come over, she said. I'm tired. Then I'll come there. No. I need to sit with it. Ruth sighed. Sitting with things is useful. Living under them is not. I know. Do you? I looked around the kitchen. The house still looked like Robert. His mug by the sink. His seed catalog on the counter. His jacket on the hook. No, I said. But I'm learning. The social part came next. That is the piece people underestimate in small towns. Bills are private, but stories move in public. The day after Melissa's post, Marcy from church called. She sounded embarrassed before she said my name. Ellen, honey, I just wanted to check on you. That's kind. Yes, well. I heard there was some confusion about the memorial dinner balance. I closed my eyes. Who told you that? A pause. No one directly. That meant everyone indirectly. I'm not refusing to pay because I can't, I said. I didn't think that. I'm refusing because the person listed as family contact should receive the family bill. Marcy was quiet. Then she said, I wondered about that card. The room went still around me. What do you mean? I saw it when I was setting out napkins. I thought maybe it was a mistake. I asked Melissa if she wanted it changed to wife. And? She said no. Marcy swallowed audibly. She said you preferred not to make things complicated. I looked at the seat card on my table. You preferred. That was another small theft. I did not prefer that, I said. I'm sorry. So am I. The calls did not stop there. One woman from Robert's Rotary group left a voicemail saying grief made people do strange financial things. A neighbor asked Ruth if I was having trouble letting the family handle Robert's affairs. Someone at the pharmacy told me Melissa had been in asking about Robert's prescription records for the children. Each time, I felt the old instinct rise. Explain. Correct. Defend. Prove I was not greedy, not bitter, not dramatic, not trying to erase Kathleen, not trying to hurt children, not losing my mind. Then I remembered the hospital form. Financially responsible. Non-family caregiver. I began to understand that explanation had been one of my unpaid jobs. So I resigned from that too. I answered only when silence would cost me something practical. I sent the caterer Melissa's email address. I sent Caring Hands the authorization page. I sent the church a check for Robert's final pledged donation, not the room fee, with a note that said, Robert made this commitment. The memorial dinner was organized by his family. Pastor Janice called after receiving it. I understand, she said. Do you? Yes. Then please stop letting Melissa use your church as proof that I'm being difficult. A breath. You're right. That was the first time someone in that circle said those two words without softening them. It mattered. Not enough. But it mattered. The next hard thing was Lila's birthday. For 12 years, I had made or ordered every Carter child's birthday cake. I knew their flavors. Abby was lemon with raspberry filling. Noah was chocolate with peanut butter frosting. Lila was vanilla with strawberry icing, but only if the sprinkles were on the sides, not the top. No one asked me to make the cake that year. That was fine. Then, at 9:12 that morning, Daniel texted. "Do you know where you usually order Lila's cake?" I stared at the message. Ruth was at my kitchen table helping me sort donation boxes. "Don't," she said without looking up. "I haven't done anything." "You made the face." "What face?" "The I can save this face." I set the phone down. 5 minutes later, another text came. "Melissa thought you had already handled it." I laughed. Ruth pointed at me. "That laugh means progress." I typed. "I did not." Daniel replied. "Okay. Thanks." Then, after a minute, she asked if you're coming. I thought about Lila. 9 years old. Missing teeth. Strawberry icing. A child who did not decide where adults sat at memorial dinners. I typed. "Not today. Tell Lila I love her and her gift will arrive Monday." This time Daniel did not argue. For most of that afternoon, I was restless. At 4, I put on my coat. Ruth looked up. "Where are you going?" "Just driving." "That means you're going to the party." "I'm not going in." "Ellen." "I'm not going in." Ruth studied my face and must have understood that stopping me would only make me more ashamed. "Then don't park close enough to be seen." I drove to Melissa's neighborhood and parked 2 houses down, behind a silver pickup. Balloons were tied to the mailbox. Children ran in the yard. Through the front window, I saw Lila in a pink sweater, Abby kneeling beside her with a gift bag. I had the wrapped watercolor pencils on the passenger seat. I told myself I would leave them on the porch. Just the porch. No scene. No conversation. When I walked up the side path, I heard voices through the open kitchen window. Melissa said, "If she comes, don't make a big production. I don't want Lila thinking this means everything goes back to normal." Daniel said something I couldn't hear. Then Melissa, sharper. "No. I mean it. She doesn't get to disappear for weeks and then play grandma when there's cake." I stopped with one foot on the bottom porch step. There it was. When I did everything, I was useful. When I stopped, I was unreliable. When I came back, I was playing a role they had never fully allowed me to have. Lila's voice floated from inside. "Is Grandma Ellen coming?" There was a silence. Then Melissa said, "She's busy, honey." Busy. I looked down at the gift in my hands. For one foolish second, I considered knocking anyway. I pictured Lila running to me. I pictured Melissa's face tightening. I pictured myself smiling too hard, pretending I had not heard. I pictured the old me stepping back into place because a child's disappointment was easier to carry than my own dignity. Then Abby's voice came, low but clear. "She's not busy. She's hurt." Another silence. I stepped back from the porch. I did not leave the gift. I took it home. That night, I repacked it in a shipping box and wrote Lila a card. "Dear Lila, I hope your birthday had strawberry icing and side sprinkles. I am sorry I missed the party. I love you very much. I hope you make something beautiful with these. Love. Grandma Ellen." I stared at the signature. Then I left it. Let Melissa correct paper if she wanted. She would not correct me. Claire sent a photo the next day. A grocery store sheet cake with blue balloons and icing. Lila smiling, though a little confused. Abby standing behind her, looking at the camera with an expression I could not read. Claire's text said. She asked where Grandma Ellen was. I pressed the phone to my chest. That hurt. But it was not the old hurt. The old hurt came from being absent because someone moved me. This hurt came from choosing absence so the truth could finally have a shape. A week later, Pastor Janice called. Melissa asked me to mediate a conversation. No. I expected that. Then why call? Because I wanted to tell you before she told people I refused. I appreciated that. Pastor Janice hesitated. She's saying you're withholding family documents. What documents? I don't know. Robert's papers, maybe. Of course. When kindness stops being useful, controlling people often try accusation. I have Robert's personal belongings, I said. Anything legal or financial has been handled appropriately. I believe you. Does she? No. That almost made me smile. Pastor Janice said, Ellen, may I say something as someone who failed you that night? I sat down. Yes. You do not owe everyone equal access to your grief. I looked at the box of papers on the table. That feels selfish. It might feel that way because you were trained to make your pain available for group management. I closed my eyes. Pastor Janice had apologized twice. I had not forgiven her exactly, but trust sometimes returns in thin threads. Thank you, I said. After we hung up, I took the seat card from the drawer. It had begun to soften at the fold from being handled too often. Ellen Brooks. Family friend. I placed it beside Robert's notebook. Do not push this. It keeps the peace. 2 pieces of paper. One from the woman who wanted me erased. One from the man who knew and let it happen. Neither would decide the rest of my life. I opened my laptop and made a new document. Not a letter yet. Just sentences. I will not pay the remaining memorial dinner balance. I will not discuss Robert's private notes with people who use my silence. I will not continue automatic payments for Daniel or Melissa's households. I will remain available to the grandchildren if they contact me directly and respectfully. I will not attend conversations designed to relabel harm as misunderstanding. The sentences looked cold on the screen. I almost softened them. Then I thought of the hospital worker saying, "You were financially responsible, but not listed as family." Accuracy could feel cold to people who benefited from fog. I printed the page, then put it in a drawer. Not everything needed to be sent. Some things simply needed to exist. The real break came on a Wednesday morning. I was cleaning out the medicine cabinet when Melissa knocked. Not rang. Knocked. Sharp, familiar, entitled. I considered not answering. Then I opened the door with Robert's old blood pressure cuff in my hand. She looked past me into the house. "We need Dad's military flag," she said. Robert had served 4 years in the Navy before I knew him. The folded flag from the funeral sat on the mantel. For what? Daniel and I think it should be at my house. Why? Because it belongs with family. The word did not cut the way it used to. Maybe scar tissue had begun forming. "It's staying here," I said. Her face hardened. "You can't keep everything." "I'm not." "You're keeping the house, the flag, his papers." "The house is mine. The flag was presented to me. His papers are being sorted. You are not his only widow." The sentence came out before she could stop it. There was a silence so complete I could hear the refrigerator click on behind me. Melissa's face changed. She knew she had said too much, or perhaps exactly enough. I spoke carefully. "Your mother was his wife. She died. I was his wife. I am standing here." Her eyes shone with angry tears. "You got the version of him that should have been ours." I almost said, "No, Melissa. I got the version that was left after you all finished needing him. But that would have been cruel, and I was trying not to become fluent in her language. Instead I said, you lost your mother. That was unfair. You did not get to make me pay for it forever. She shook her head. You don't understand. I understand more than you think. No, you don't. You came in when all the hard parts were over. I stared at her. The hard parts. Robert's oxygen machine. Hospital nights. Medication alarms. Insurance appeals. Shower chairs. Panic breathing. Cleaning. Cooking. Paying. Rearranging my life around a man whose children visited when grief needed witnesses. The hard parts were not over, I said. She looked away. For the first time, I thought she might know that. But knowing would require grief she could not organize. So she returned to what she knew. Dad would want us to have the flag. Robert wanted many things he did not earn. Her eyes snapped back. I surprised myself again. I'm not giving you the flag today. This isn't over. No, I said. But your part in my house is. I closed the door. My heart pounded so hard I leaned against the wall. Then I walked to the mantel and picked up the flag. It was heavier than I expected. I carried it to the bedroom and placed it in the cedar chest at the foot of the bed. Not hidden. Not surrendered. Just removed from the place where Melissa's eyes had already claimed it. That evening, I called a real estate agent. Not to sell immediately. Just to ask questions. Her name was Denise. She had sold Ruth's sister's house the year before. I'm thinking about downsizing, I said. When? I don't know. That's fine. We can start with information. Information. That was all I wanted at first. She came Friday afternoon, walked through the house, took notes, complimented the light in the dining room, and gently suggested that removing some personal items would help buyers imagine themselves there. After she left, I stood in the dining room looking at the wall of family photos. Kathleen and Robert with young Melissa and Daniel. Robert with Abby as a baby. Robert and me in Vermont, though that one had been added by me and remained slightly smaller than the others. Thanksgiving photos where I was absent because I had taken them. Christmas mornings where my hand appeared in the corner, passing someone a gift. A life documented by the people facing the camera. I began taking frames down. Not angrily. Not all of them. Just enough to see the wall behind them. In the largest frame, Thanksgiving 6 years earlier, I saw my shadow at the bottom again. I removed the photo, turned it over, and wrote on the back. I was there. Then I put it in my own box. Not Robert's. Mine. The house changed slowly after that. I donated Robert's medical equipment. I returned unopened supplies to the pharmacy. I moved his recliner to the garage, then cried so hard Ruth had to sit on the floor with me until it passed. I canceled the family streaming account and opened one under my name. I removed Melissa as an emergency contact from my phone. I added Ruth. That one felt bigger than it should have. When the form asked relationship, I typed friend. Then I paused and changed it to chosen family. The words looked almost too sentimental. I left them anyway. Daniel called less often, but when he did, he sounded different. More careful. Not distant, exactly. Adult. He told me he had refinanced the car loan. He told me Noah might have to pause guitar for a few months. He told me Abby wanted to come by after finals. He did not ask me to fix any of it. Near the end of the call, he said, I read something Dad wrote. I went still. What? Claire showed me the email. The one about forms. I waited. He exhaled. I didn't know he knew. Neither did I. I keep being mad at him, then missing him, then mad again. That sounds right. Is that how you feel? I looked at the box of papers on the table. Yes. He was quiet. I'm sorry I let Melissa decide what you were. That was the closest he had come to naming it. I closed my eyes. Thank you. I don't know how to fix it. You can't fix the past. I know. But you can stop repeating it. He said, I'm trying. For once, I believed him. Melissa did not try. Or maybe she tried in the only way she knew. She sent a card in the mail. Not a text. Not an email. A real card. The front had flowers and a printed message about healing. Inside she wrote, Ellen. This has gone too far. Dad loved all of us and would be heartbroken to see division. I know mistakes were made on both sides. I hope someday you can remember the good and stop focusing on paperwork and money. The children miss the old you. Melissa. The old you. I held the card over the trash, then stopped. Not because I wanted to keep it. Because it belonged with the others. Not Robert's cards. The evidence. I placed it in a folder labeled Melissa. Ruth saw the folder later and raised an eyebrow. Are we building a case? No. Then what is that? A reminder. Of? What tone sounds like when it's trying to drag me backward? Ruth smiled. Put that on a pillow. I did not answer Melissa's card. Instead, I waited until the first of the month. Then I confirmed every canceled payment. Music Academy, canceled. Bright Steps, canceled. Carter Auto, removed. Caring Hands, paid final balance, account closed. Church memorial invoice, forwarded to Melissa. Family phone discount, removed. Storage room, scheduled for closure. Each confirmation email felt less like revenge than subtraction. A little less weight. A little less noise. A little less of my life leaking into places where my name had been reduced. On the morning I closed the storage room, Kevin helped me carry the last boxes to my car. Only one remained. Kathleen Personal. I had avoided it for weeks. Kevin said, "Do you want me to dispose of that?" No. It was not mine, but it had lived in space I paid for. I opened it in the parking lot. Inside were old scarves, photographs, a recipe book, 2 Christmas ornaments, and a stack of cards from Melissa and Daniel when they were children. At the bottom was a photograph of Kathleen at about 45, standing in Robert's kitchen holding a pie. She had kind eyes and flower on her sleeve. For years, I had imagined Kathleen as the woman whose place I failed to respect by existing. Looking at that photo, I wondered what she would have thought of all this. Maybe she would have hated me. Maybe she would have pitied me. Maybe, being a woman who had lived in that same family system, she would have understood too much. I took the recipe book and photographs to Melissa's porch in a cardboard box. I did not knock. On top, I placed a note. These belong to your mother. You should have them. No signature. No invitation. The next day, Abby texted me. Mom cried when she found the box. I did not know what to do with that. For a moment, I saw Melissa as a daughter sitting on a porch with her dead mother's scarf in her hands. Then I saw her crossing my name off a memorial program. Both were true. People are rarely only what they did to you. That does not mean they get the key back. Summer came early that year. By June, the house was listed. Melissa found out from someone else and called from a number I had not blocked. "You're selling Dad's house?" "My house," I said. "You didn't tell us." "No." How could you not tell us? Because telling you would have been treated as asking permission. She breathed sharply. What about Thanksgiving? What about the kids? The kids can have Thanksgiving wherever their parents make it. That house is part of our family. I looked around the kitchen. The patched wall where Robert once bumped a chair. The window above the sink. The table where I had sorted bills, letters, and the remains of a roll I no longer wanted. It was part of mine too. You're erasing him. No, I said. I'm refusing to live as his apology. She had no answer for that. The last box I found was in the hall closet, behind 2 umbrellas and a broken vacuum attachment. It was labeled in Robert's handwriting. EC cards. My first thought was that it held cards from me to him. Birthday cards, anniversary notes, the little paper trail of a marriage. I carried it to the kitchen table. Inside were envelopes. Dozens of them. Cream, blue, pale green. Some sealed. Some not. All addressed to Ellen. Not Ellen Brooks. Not caregiver. Ellen. The top envelope was dated 8 years earlier. I opened it carefully. My Ellen. I watched you today in the kitchen after everyone left. You were scraping plates, and Abby came back in to ask where her blue sweater was. You knew. Of course you knew. You always know where everyone's missing things are. I should have told you then that this house breathes because of you. The kids don't see it. Or maybe they do and don't know what to do with it. I tell myself there will be a better time to say something. I'm writing it here because I failed to say it out loud. Thank you. R. I sat down before I fell. The next card was from Christmas 6 years earlier. Ellen. Melissa corrected Abby again today. I saw your face. I hated myself for not saying anything. I told myself Christmas was not the time. That is becoming my excuse for too many things. You are not trying to replace Kathleen. I know that. I wish Melissa knew it too. No. That is dishonest. I wish I had the courage to make her hear it. R. I pressed the card flat with both hands. Another card. After Lila's hospital visit. Ellen. You paid the emergency bill before anyone even knew what was happening. You sat with that child for 4 hours and then acted like it was nothing because you did not want Melissa to feel guilty. I let her thank me. I let her think I handled it. I told myself I would correct it later. I did not. I am sorry in a way I do not know how to say without sounding smaller than I already feel. R. The next. After a Thanksgiving where I had cooked for 16 people and eaten standing at the counter because there were not enough chairs once Melissa invited friends. Ellen. You made my family look whole today. They will remember the meal. They may never remember who stood through most of it. I did. That is not enough. R. Card after card. Year after year. Not love letters exactly. Confessions. Apologies rehearsed privately and abandoned publicly. He had seen more than I thought. He had understood more than I allowed myself to hope. And he had still chosen the drawer. Near the bottom was an envelope dated 3 months before his death. The handwriting was shaky. I opened it last. Ellen. If this year has taught me anything, it is that kindness can become something people live off without respecting. I have let that happen to you. I used to tell myself I was protecting the kids, protecting Kathleen's memory, protecting the shape of the family they lost. But the truth is less noble. I was protecting myself from their disappointment. You paid for that protection. You paid in time, in money, in silence, in small humiliations I pretended were not as sharp as they were. If I had been braver, they would have known you were never the guest in this family. They would have known you were the one keeping the lights on. I do not know how to fix it now. I keep thinking I will call everyone together when I feel stronger. I keep thinking there will be a right day. I am afraid there may not be. If I fail again, and knowing me, I hope you will not mistake my cowardice for your worth. You deserved a husband who said it in the room. I am sorry I have mostly been a man who wrote it after everyone left. Robert. I read it once. Then I folded it back along the original creases. I did not cry at first. I made tea. I put the kettle on, took down a mug, spooned loose tea into the strainer with careful hands. I poured the water. I watched the color spread. Then I sat at the kitchen table with the mug untouched and made a sound I had never heard from myself before. It was not loud. It was not pretty. It was the sound of 18 years being understood too late. Ruth found me that way because she had a key and a habit of ignoring my claims that I was fine. She read the last card standing beside the table. When she finished, she put it down gently. "That foolish man," she said. It was the closest thing to a prayer. I laughed through tears. He loved me. Yes. He failed me. Yes. I don't know which one I'm supposed to hold. Ruth sat beside me. Both. One in each hand. Don't let either one cancel the other. For a long time, we sat with the box of unsent cards between us. Eventually Ruth said, "What are you going to do with them?" "I don't know." "You don't have to know today." But I did know one thing. I did not want Melissa to have them. Not because they made Robert look bad. Because they made him look human in a way she had not earned the right to use. If Melissa saw those cards, she would turn them into something convenient. Proof that Dad loved Ellen, so Ellen should forgive. Proof that Dad felt guilty, so everyone should heal. Proof that all of it had been complicated, and complicated people should not be judged. No. Those cards were not hers. They were not even fully Robert's anymore. They were the record of what I had lived through and what he had known. The house sold in August to a young couple with a toddler and another baby coming. The woman loved the kitchen window. The man said he could fix the porch railing. Their little boy ran in circles around the empty living room until his mother apologized. "Don't," I said. "A house should know children." Before closing, I bought a cream envelope. I placed the seat card inside. With it, I placed a copy of the memorial invoice sticky note. "Can you take care of the remaining balance? Dad would appreciate it." I did not include Robert's cards. Those were not for her. I wrote one page by hand. "Melissa. At Robert's memorial dinner, you gave me a seat card that said family friend. For weeks, I treated that card as an insult. I understand now that it was also an instruction. You were telling me where you believed I belonged. I have decided to accept your definition, but not your terms. A family friend does not pay grandchildren's tuition accounts. A family friend does not cover car loans. A family friend does not manage medical bills while being removed from hospital authority. A family friend does not carry grief, bills, holidays, meals, emergencies, and silence so everyone else can keep calling it peace. You were right that I was not family in the way you wanted family to mean. So I will stop carrying family responsibilities. I loved your father. I also know now that he saw more than he admitted and changed less than he should have. That is between me and his memory. What is between you and me is simpler. I am done being useful in places where I am not allowed to be real. Ellen. I read it once. I did not soften it. I mailed it on a Tuesday morning. The woman at the post office weighed it, printed the label, and slid it into the bin with electric bills, birthday cards, catalogs, and ordinary American paperwork. It disappeared without ceremony. Most endings do. Melissa did not respond for 9 days. When she finally did, it was a voicemail. I saw her name on the screen and let it go. Her voice sounded smaller than usual. Ellen. I got your letter. A long pause. I don't know what to say. Another pause. I showed Daniel. Silence again. I think maybe Dad let things happen he shouldn't have. Her breath shook. I'm not ready to talk about everything. I'm still angry. But Lila asked why you don't come over anymore, and I didn't know how to answer without lying. I stood in my nearly empty kitchen, holding the phone. Melissa continued. I'm not asking for anything. I wanted you to know I got it. The voicemail ended. For a long time, I stared at the screen. Then I saved it. Not because it fixed anything. Because truth, even late and incomplete, deserves a place to land. I did not call back. On closing day, I walked through each room alone. In the bedroom, I stood where Robert's side of the bed had been. I'm leaving, I said. It felt strange to speak to him there, not at the cemetery. I loved you. I still do, in the part of me that doesn't take instructions from pain. The room was quiet. But I'm not staying inside what you were afraid to repair. I placed his final unsent card in my purse. The others were in a sealed box going with me. I did not know if I would reread them. Maybe someday. Maybe not. Keeping something is not the same as living under it. My new place was a small condo 12 miles away, closer to Ruth and farther from Maple Street. It had 2 bedrooms, one for me and one for whatever came next. The kitchen was smaller. The windows were better. There was no dining room large enough for 16 people, which felt like a design feature. The first morning there, I woke before sunrise. For a second, I forgot where I was. No oxygen machine hum. No pill organizer alarm. No Robert breathing beside me. No family group chat lighting up with someone else's emergency. Just a quiet room, pale blue with early light. I made coffee in a mug I bought myself. Not one from the old house. Not one Robert liked. Mine had a chip in the handle from the thrift store, and I liked it for that. I toasted 1 slice of bread. I scrambled 1 egg. At the small round table by the window, there were 2 chairs. Only 2. Ruth had teased me about that when she helped unpack. Planning to become mysterious? Planning to stop owning chairs for people who only come hungry. She laughed so hard she had to sit down. That morning, I opened the drawer beside the table and took out 3 things. Robert's final card. The copy of my letter to Melissa. And the seat card. Ellen Brooks. Family friend. I looked at it for a long time. Then I turned it over. On the back, in my own handwriting, I wrote. I was there. I paid attention. I left. I placed it in the drawer beneath Robert's card, not as a wound I needed to touch every day, but as a record. Then I closed the drawer. Outside, someone in the parking lot started a car. A dog barked once. The coffee cooled enough to drink. My phone buzzed. A text from Abby. Can I come by this weekend? Just me. I smiled. Not the old smile that asked permission from ghosts. A real one. I typed. Yes. I'd like that. Then I set the phone face down, drank my coffee while it was still hot, and watched the morning come in through windows no one had taught me to disappear from.